Welcome, it's Jeremy Allen Gould. I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that in fact, the rumors that you have all heard are true. I started this podcast because I freaking love music. I was privileged enough to book amazing artists and bands in the past, and I was lucky enough to stay in touch with many of them to this day. This is a place to hear their stories. Thank you so much for riding along on this journey, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true. Hey, thank you for tuning in to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome Adam Neubauer from the band Ghoti Hook. Man, what an awesome conversation Adam and I have talking about the beginnings of his musical journey, the band Ghoti Hook as well, and we go through each record, the end of Ghoti Hook, and the upcoming Furnace Fest show that they've got coming up, as well as a show with the Throws and potential other shows in the future as well. So awesome conversation. Adam's so cool, so kind, and got some really cool stories. I really hope you enjoy this latest episode with Adam Neubauer. Adam, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. What are you up to now? It's been a while since we've talked, but tell me what's going on in your life.
I've got the wife and kids, a 15-year-old son and a 2.5-year-old daughter.
Wow.
She was our COVID surprise. So I work from home. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator for a think tank out of DC. And I couldn't ask for a better situation. Got a house and kids and a wife and a great job, and it's just a huge blessing.
That's so cool, man. That's awesome. And you're in the burbs of DC area still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me talk to you about when you were growing up, music, kind of how it percolated your life, how it came into your life. Maybe talk about some records, some influences, some bands that you kind of gravitated to at a young age.
Okay. I'm really distracted by how red my lips are in the video. I promise I'm not wearing lipstick. It's odd. My dad was a minister and my mom was a minister's wife, but they're both, my dad was the type of guy that could pick up any instrument and play it. It was bananas. But he was a drummer for a long time, and he played the trumpet, he played guitar, anything. And my mom was a vocalist. She sang a lot. And it's funny, I was going back through my brain, and there's so many like really long connective things in my life. The church had an old Gretsch drum set, kind of left set up over off to the side, but nobody ever played it. So when I was like 7 or 8 years old, like during song service, I would go over there with pencils. I don't know if growing up in church, some churches have the little like prayer request envelopes or tied envelopes, and they leave little pencils next to them so you can write. I would take those little pencils and just play on the drums so no one could hear me during song service. And then got some friends through Royal Rangers.
Bro, I was in Royal Rangers.
Nice.
It's something of God, bro.
Yeah. That's how Joel and I met.
Okay.
We were probably 9 or 10 years old and started hanging out. And then had another friend, Justin, and we would just like every weekend, we were on our bikes going who knows where. We'd take our bikes into DC. We'd go all over the place.
Wow.
And as we got older, we got less interested in bikes and that kind of stuff. And our friend Justin started playing the guitar, and I had started playing drums at school. And so we were like, we should play music. And I think I was like 12 years old when Ghoti Hook pretty much started. I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
So the three of us would play. Joel started playing the guitar because he felt left out. So as we got a little bit older, we met more friends. We met Conrad in youth group, and another guy, Christian Ergetta, he was in the Royal Rangers. We knew him. He wanted to play bass. So we all would just we just started hanging out, playing really terrible music. And then we did that for several years and never really played shows or did anything. We just we would ride around in Conrad's car. He was the oldest. None of us had driver's license. Conrad got his driver's license. And so he would drive us to the mall or the movies, and we would listen to a lot of Metallica and the Violent Femmes, Dead Milkmen. We listened to a lot of Dead Milkmen. And then our friend Clay, he had this tape, and he's like, oh, you guys got to listen to this tape. We're like, all right. And it was Operation Ivy.
Wow.
And we were like, this is amazing. And it was like, we really listened to a lot of Operation Ivy after that. And then I think went on to like Screeching Weasel. And then we found Green Day. It was like, I think that was around the time they put out 1,039 Slap Happy Hours.
Yeah.
And then Kerplunk came out. And I remember Kerplunk was kind of like, oh, we could do this. So we took, our love for, the Metallica stuff you can kind of hear in our music with some of the more darker songs, but then trying other stuff, not just playing one thing, comes from Violent Femmes and Dead Milkmen, and really diving into punk music came from us starting to listen to Operation Ivy and Screeching Weasel and Green Day. So you kind of mush all those together, and that's kind of the beginnings of us latching onto a sound.
Yeah, I can totally hear all those influences when you say that. That's pretty amazing, actually. Were your parents aware that you were listening to this kind of music, or was it kind of behind their backs, and were they supportive of you playing music at some point, or like once you get going?
Yeah, like the rule was, as long as the music wasn't influencing me in a negative way, I could listen to whatever I wanted.
That's cool.
Because they both really love music. Like I grew up, the radio was always on in the car. We had a record player. I was constantly playing my dad's records. He had a really eclectic collection of music. He had like Chubby Checker and Manhattan Transfer, Harper's Bazaar. Harper's Bazaar had a really big influence on me as I got older. Cool. That really came out in the music I was interested in. So it was great to have, a huge conglomerate of music that I listened to growing up. I got I got really into Faith No More. I'm still a huge Faith No More fan. I guess middle school, I started listening to them.
I know the feeling. I had the same thing.
And I found out that Mike Patton had another band. Well, when Mike Patton joined the band, I really I got into Faith No More even more. And then I found out he had another band called Mr. Bungle, and I was like, oh, I got to check this out. So I got the record, and it's just crazy heavy metal circus music. But the lyrics are less than what you would call uplifting.
Totally.
And my mom went into my room, and of all the records she could have pulled out of my collection, she pulled that one out and read the lyrics. And I was just like, oh my gosh. She's like, so that was the only time she was ever like, I don't think you should be listening to this. And being a teenage kid, I was like, all right, I'll get rid of the record. So I took it to a place where I could sell CDs, and I used the money to buy that record over again. So I technically got rid of the record, but I just bought it back with the money that I got from selling.
That's funny. So you kind of mentioned how Ghoti Hook started to come together. Let's talk about that for a little bit. I know you're talking about driving around, hanging out, and writing really bad songs. When did you start to write good songs, I guess is the question. When did it click?
We put out 2 EPs on our own, and I think a lot of bands say, you know, when we started, we were writing terrible music and blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of guys, like, they have a sense of direction even when they're starting out. We had 0 direction. We were just, it was like music, just blah, you know. And I think listening to those 2 EPs, oh, and this is when like all the Southern California punk bands were like just starting to tour. So we would go to the old 930 Club, and we saw Green Day, Tilt, Face to Face, all those bands. And we would watch them, and it was just like, these guys are so cool.
It's awesome.
They sound cool, they look cool, and it was like having that presented to us versus what we were putting out was like, oh, we've got to do something. Because we started playing shows, and it was just chaos. We would wear costumes. We would bring like a ton of strobe lights, and we would just, it was more of a spectacle than it was musical. So we got some interest for that because we were willing to just do whatever on stage. And so the more we started playing shows and the more people started showing up, we were like, there's that desire to put out something of substance instead of just, we're a bunch of idiots that have no idea what we're doing. So I think that really helped us focus. I guess you'd say is like trial by fire. You know, it's like, we don't want to look like idiots. We don't want to bring our girlfriends to.
Yeah.
So I think it was really just, and I think that was a theme throughout the rest of Ghoti Hook. It was just like, how can we present ourselves in a way that people can have something to latch onto?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I answered your question. I rambled for so long.
No, you did. How did you come up with the name? I've always wondered that.
Well, I don't even know if we had a name for a long time, but again, I think starting to play shows, people were like, well, what are you called? So we needed something. And my dad taught me when I was little the phonetic spelling of fish. And so it was just a throw out. I was like, hey, my dad taught me this thing. it's fish hook, but it looks like Ghoti Hook. And so it just kind of sat there, and it was like, it was a thing. It was a thing we could explain to people so that, they'd be like, oh, that band has a weird name. We remember them.
That's smart.
Which kind of ended up biting us on the ass a little bit, because we ended up explaining it for the next, 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Hey,
so
it's funny because I was telling you earlier I was going to bring up the story, and I don't know if you remember this, and because I not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was. So you mentioned Assembly of God and Royal Rangers. Did you guys ever play Fine Arts Festival? Do you remember that it was kind of one of those things where people would go and do talents, they'd go sing or do like a mime or go. The reason why I ask is I was actually at one in Virginia back in the 90s, and I remember specifically they were like, there's a band playing here, because everyone would come and sing with the, like a track or whatever, but they were like, there's a band here, and I remember that it being the hook was in the name, and I couldn't remember, and so we were looking. Does that ring a bell with you at all? I've always wondered that.
Oh yeah. We played, was it like in a big building where there was kind of happening all over the place?
Yeah, because people were singing and doing all stuff all over. It was kind of like a Star Search or whatever for Assembly of God, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But yeah, I vividly remember that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I can still kind of see the room so it was like us playing in a room, and there were 3 judges sitting in front of us. Yep,
that's exactly it.
And I remember I had before I knew like how to play the drums or how to make them sound good or anything, I had these stickers, these like fuzzy stickers on my drums to deaden the sound, to make them real like thumpy. And I had just drawn a yin yang symbol on one of them. Didn't even think about it. And we got I'm trying to remember. We kept the sheet for a while, but the one judge was like, great band, a lot of energy, blah, 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 but, really disappointed in their use of symbolism of having a yin yang on the drum.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally remember that.
That's insane. I looking back, for the longest time I was like, I wonder if that was them. But I knew you were guys from that area, so it made sense why it would be. But I've always kind of had that in my back pocket. I'm like, when we met up, I forgot to ask you about it in the first place. But
that's crazy.
It is. It's a small world. It literally. I don't even know why I was there. I wasn't even singing. Like I think my dad was a pastor too, so I think I was just along for the ride, And it was like, I don't know.
Was he a pastor in Virginia?
He was a pastor in Maryland. We lived in Cumberland, which was about 3 hours from Alexandria. I think that's where that was.
Did you ever go to MKPK camp?
I did. And I bet you we were at the same one. That's hysterical. I totally did. And they used to make us wear jeans when it was 100 degrees out. Yeah. Dude, I absolutely went to those. That's nuts. That's so funny. It bums me out that we didn't know each other then, because we would have been homies.
Yeah.
Dude.
We've come together. Like I said.
I know. It's full circle, bro.
Long-term circular connections in my life.
Dude, that's so crazy. That's so cool. I'm like completely shocked right now. That's nuts. Anyway, all right, back to Ghoti Hook. So you're playing shows, starting to find yourself, starting to find your sound. Record the 2 EPs. How does Tooth and Nail come into the picture? And when you're playing shows, are you playing with local punk bands or touring acts? How's that going for you?
We did almost nothing locally. DC was such a specific vibe back then, because this is like early 90s. So you've got Fugazi and the Makeup and all these crazy popular post-punk, post-hardcore bands that are the scene. And then you've got us who are like, we would dress up in costumes and come out on stage to like the Mortal Kombat soundtrack and just like dance around for 10 minutes. Like we didn't fit. But Philadelphia and Central PA, it was anything goes. Nobody cared. So Blenderhead and MXPX were on tour. Oh, and we had no idea that there was like, we had no idea that bands like Blenderhead and MXPX even existed. We were, we grew up in church, so we knew the like Petra and Res Band and stuff like that. But we didn't know there was anything else out there. So a guy contacted our bass player, Christian, to come play a show at Drexel University. And so we're like, okay. It was on a Friday night. So like I went to school, left school, packed up our van and drove up to Philly to play at Drexel University. And it was MXPX and Blenderhead. And the guy who booked the show was Scott Hatch.
Oh, from Burnt Toast.
Yeah. So we were still doing our thing, just total chaos on stage. And Bill Power from Tooth and Nail was like, he really dug it. He thought we had this kind of like Descendants vibe, but like if the Descendants were at the circus or something like that. I forget how he explained it. And so from there, we kind of blew up in the Central PA market. So we were playing shows like every weekend. Like I was a total nobody in high school. Like I didn't talk to people. Teachers, I would get stopped sometimes and teachers would tell me I'd need a visitor pass. And I was like, no, I'm a student here. And they're just like, but so like it was that all week. And then Friday we would leave and go play someplace in Pennsylvania. And then, sometimes it'd be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'd come back Monday morning and start school. And so from all of that activity, people told us that there was a festival in Illinois called Cornerstone that, we should go and try to play. So I remember the very first Cornerstone we went to, we bought tickets and just showed up with our gear and set up next to the skate ramp and just played. I don't even know if we had microphones or anything. I think we just played music. And I remember Reese from Five Iron was there. And he was like, wow, this is really cool. You guys have a lot of great energy. And so I think the next couple years of Cornerstone, we figured out if we had a magazine or a zine with a certain amount of people on our list, you can get into Cornerstone as a journalist for free. So we put out a zine called Ghoti Goods, and we got every show we played, we had people sign this list. And then we sent the list to Cornerstone. We're like, hey, we're journalists. We have a zine. We want to come to your festival. And so we did that for the next couple of years. So we'd get into Cornerstone for free, and then we would play shows wherever people would let us.
That's awesome.
Like, I think one year a band like didn't show up or couldn't play. So we took that slot and got on one of the stages. So we were just hustling as best we could outside of the, norm. But I think because we did that, labels like 5 Minute Walk, Tooth and Nail, and some other ones were interested in us. And that eventually led us to signing with Tooth and Nail.
That's awesome. when you, I guess, how did that come? Obviously, you said Bill liked it. Did Brandon come to you and say, "Hey, I want you guys," or how did that kind of happen?
Bill, we were kind of Bill's baby back then, because he really dug us. I think Brandon, I don't know if Brandon totally got it. We were just, you guys are wild. I don't know what's going on.
You sound like him.
We didn't meet Brandon until we were recording Sumo Surprise.
Wow.
He came out to the studio, and that was the first time I met him. And I was like, this guy's a very specific personality.
Oh, yeah. That's hysterical. Yeah, you mentioned Sumo Surprise. I was going to ask you about that. Let's talk about that record. Let's talk about maybe your thoughts, your memories on the recording of that, and kind of looking back on it, how you feel about it.
Sumo, it's interesting because I've doing these reunion shows that are coming up. I've had to go back and listen to a lot of these songs, and listening to Sumo. It's an interesting record to go back and listen to as a person who was on that record, because like I was saying before, with all the different styles of music we grew up with, today I would never put out a record that sounded like Sumo Surprise, because it's just, it's so all over the place. Like you've got super serious songs like Never and Scared Am I, with like really heavy subject matter, but then you go into these other really stupid songs. But I think it sounded more cohesive because when Tooth and Nail wanted to sign us, I was still, I might have been still 16. So legally I couldn't sign a contract. I would have to have like my parents sign the contract for me, and then I would get grandfathered in later when I turned 18. So we just decided to wait a year. So as soon as I turned 18, we signed a contract with Tooth and Nail, and we got Salt and Pepper's lawyer to negotiate the contract.
That's cool.
Which I think kind of pissed Brandon off, because he was just like, who are these punk kids from the East Coast? Oh, they're from DC, so they get Salt and Pepper's lawyer and blah, blah. It's like, because we negotiated a really good contract. So our time on Tooth and Nail was gravy. Everybody was happy.
That's awesome.
So that year of waiting for me to sign gave us a chance to really work on the record and to figure out what we wanted to do and how we wanted it to sound, so that when we went into the studio, which is an awesome studio, it was Oz Studios up in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like Jawbox, I think, had just recorded there.
Sick.
It was a really cool experience. I remember, so for most records, you start with drum tracks and then you build on top of that.
Yeah.
So Oz Studios has the control booth and then a side room for vocals and guitars. And then they have this massive, like gymnasium size room for the drums. So it's my like first real studio. We've done other studio sessions like in people's houses, but this was like, I'm in a studio, this is cool. But I'm like 30 yards away from the control booth. And so it's like this little window way on the other side of the room, and I can hear him talking in the headphones. So it's just this really lonely sensation of like, I'm recording drum tracks way over in this like gym. But still, it was awesome. And we just, because we were ready, we just knocked everything out.
That's awesome.
Mixes, we could work on, vocal parts, it was like, if that's not really hitting right, we could work with it. So it was really cool.
That sounds awesome. Did anyone produce it, or did you guys produce it yourself, or?
Drew Mazurek,
Okay.
Who did a ton of like indie bands on the East Coast. As he would tell you, his claim to fame is he recorded that "Let Me Clear My Throat" song. Let me clear. They played it. Like,
oh yeah.
He recorded that.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
But that is not by any means like what he should be known for. We actually had two producers. So it's Drew Mazurek. He worked for Oz Studios, and then Kevin Gutierrez, who did our EPs. So Tooth and Nail wanted Drew to produce it, but we wanted Kevin to be there because he knew our sound. He knew what we were doing, and we thought it would just quicken the process. So it was overkill in hindsight, but we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, you're young. Absolutely. When you finally heard the final record, what were your thoughts? I know you kind of said, looking back on it, it's a little frantic or all over the place. But look, as a young person, when you heard it, what were your thoughts?
I never really listened to our music. I never really listened to our recorded music. I mean, like a young musician with dreams and hopes, my dream was like, I want to be able to walk into Tower Records and find my band's CD. That's all I cared about. I wanted to tour, and I wanted to be able to find our music anywhere I went.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I cared about. But I remember listening to it after it was mastered, and I was just like, it was almost like I wasn't even connected to it, because it's like having a dream, and then suddenly that dream comes true, and I didn't totally know how to connect myself to it. It was like there was this other me doing stuff, and this me watching it all happen.
That's cool.
But it was a dream come true, is like the most concise way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. In particular on that record, do you have a favorite song from that record?
I mean, Never always comes to mind, because we put a lot of effort into that song. I'm going to look it up right now because I honestly can't remember all the songs on the record.
That seems like the norm on this podcast.
South Capitol Street was one that we were like, this is a cool song. Yeah. This is a song we could play in front of any of our heroes and feel proud of ourselves.
That's cool. That's really cool.
But yeah, there's a lot of songs where I'm just like, ugh, I don't think I'd play that in front of any of our heroes. Yeah, okay, so there's a song called Dry Run on Sumo. So like Never is about a parent finding their child dying from a car crash on the side of the road. Scared Am I is about a girl going and getting an abortion by herself.
Yeah.
Dry Run is about a conversation we had where, you know how you get the dry heaves? Mm-hmm. Your body wants to throw up, but nothing's coming out.
Oh yeah.
Our conversation was, could that ever happen with diarrhea? Could you ever have so much diarrhea your body wants to produce something, but nothing's coming out? So that's where Dry Run came from. So
that's
we've got
incredible.
Like 2 songs about like really negative, like really dark subject matter, and then you've got a song about, theorizing what could happen after you have too much diarrhea. So
that's incredible. That's incredible.
But yeah, I'd say like South Capitol Street never were two songs where I was like, these are cool songs. I like these.
Yeah, very cool. So record comes out. Do you hit the road pretty quickly? And who are you touring with at that time?
So I had my high school graduation in 95. And the day after graduation, we left to go on tour. And we toured with Value Pack.
Nice.
We put out our first records right about the same time. So it made sense for Tooth and Nail to put us out together at that time. And we gelled pretty quickly. It was a fun tour.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I think I talked to you about this the other day. I think, I'm not sure when it was, but I know I saw you guys with, I want to say it was MXPX Supertones, maybe. I can't, or Stavesacre Supertones, or something like that. I don't remember.
Supertones.
That's probably what it was. And I saw, what time frame was that?
That was
maybe 97.
That had to have been after Banana Man.
Okay. Well, then we'll talk about that later. That's fine. I remember that one specifically. I just couldn't.
That was a brutal tour.
I bet it was. Well, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about Banana Man. Sumo Surprise happens. You go on the road. Things are going well. Value Pack. When do you start thinking about writing the new record? And obviously the subject matter is a little more loose, a little more goofy, like you were talking about. So maybe talk about the process and getting to that record.
So we started touring in the summer of 95, and we didn't stop. We toured constantly. Even I think Joel and Jamie went to school for a little while, but even like we did short tours even while they were in school, and we didn't even think about the next record. We were just going. We did festivals. We were doing as much as we could to play shows. And then Tooth and Nail, I'm fuzzy on the timeline, but it had to have been at a festival or when we were out on the West Coast. Someone from Tooth and Nail was like, so are you guys ready for the next record? I was kind of like, no, not at all.
Jeez.
So we had to stop touring because we were making money, and if you're making money, you can keep going. And so it was a struggle for us because we didn't have jobs. And if we did have jobs, it was like temp stuff here and there. So I'm sure we've talked to Bill. I'm sure I've talked to Bill about this. Or Billy. I know a lot of people call him Billy now, but I still call him Bill. So if I say Bill, I'm talking about Bill Powers.
Mr. Bill.
So Banana Man technically is not a full-length record. So to maintain what's in our contract, we had to put out a full-length record. So we quickly scrambled to write a bunch of these songs. I don't know. We might have started writing some of these songs beforehand. I'm looking at them right now. But I mean, I want to say it was like a 2-week period where we stopped touring and just wrote as many songs as we could. Which is why if you listen to the record, like a lot of the intros to the songs are super long. Like you're ready for the song to start, you're ready for the verse to kick in, and it's like, oh, it's okay, it's still the intro, here we go. And then it gets to the verse. We were just stretching those songs as long as we could, and then that's why the box is on there 4 different times. Because technically they counted as different songs, So it put us within the realm of having a full-length record.
Wow.
But the record, I mean, I want to say a full length has to be longer than 39 minutes or something to that effect. And we were at like 34 with actual music. So it technically would have been an EP, but we put the box on there 4 times, which gave us a full length.
Wow. What, yeah, let's talk about that recording. Obviously it was pretty quick. Did you find yourself, like you said, you took the 2 weeks, you started to write songs. Were you writing songs in the studio? Were you, was it just so fast that it was over with? How did that go?
Yeah. We knew that if we could get the drums ready, it would give us a couple days, maybe like 3 days to do drum tracks, which would give the other guys time to write the guitar parts they wanted, bass line, and vocals. I remember Joel he was in the kitchen just writing lyrics constantly while I was doing drum tracks. And a lot of it was like, yeah, it rhymes, put it on there.
It's incredible.
But yeah, we got to record at Oz Studio again. I don't remember what happened in the process, but there was some business stuff that happened that didn't relate to us. And the recording and mastering process just tanked really hard. And we've never liked the way Banana Man sound. When we listened to the mixes out of the studio and we're like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then when we got the masters back, we were on tour and I think they shipped them to us and we listened to the masters and we were just like, this sounds awful. But there was there wasn't time or anything to fix it. We already had tours booked. So Tooth and Nail just put it out. So we were really disappointed by Banana Man, but I think it's one of our more popular records.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on it? Looking back on it, I know like you said, you were kind of in a time crunch. But looking back, how do you feel about that record?
There's like, I don't know, honestly. It happened so fast. Like the song like Middle Ground, Running Away, and Esteban, I think are like, is Esteban on here? Yeah. Are 3 songs that should have been on a record that matched their caliber. If we had had time to do that, but we didn't. So we've got, and it's interesting. The song Just Fools is on there. It's a real mid-tempo kind of, we had, what is it? The Social Distortion record, White Heat, White Trash. I forget the title. But Chuck Biscuits was playing the drums on that record, the drummer from Danzig. Yeah. And it was this real, just simple, like no nonsense, just drum style. And so that's where the drums for Just Fools came from, where it was just real simple, real just heavy, mash the drums as hard as I could style, which to me is a segue song into 2 Years to Never.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's probably kind of what I was getting. I figured that's what you were getting at. I definitely can see the different, or the change, I guess, in the tone on the record after that. Banana Man comes out. You mentioned the touring was grueling. Let's talk about the touring part of that record and how that went for you guys.
We were a band that played anywhere. We didn't care where it was. If somebody booked us on tour, we went and we played, and that was it. because we toured with other bands that would tell us stories about shows where, there wouldn't be a lot of people, or they didn't like something and they just bail on the show. And it was just like, that was inconceivable to us, and we didn't like days off, because if you had a day off, that meant you were spending money instead of making money, and if we're going to sustain touring without having jobs, it's easy math.
Sure.
We're not like one of those bands where it's like, oh, we've got to make money. It's just like, we enjoyed eating lunch and dinner and, being able to wash our clothes when we wanted to.
Absolutely.
So we toured constantly. And so I think we got on that Stavesacre Supertones tour in the fall of '97.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And because it was before we went and toured in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
So the way am I still?
You're here. Yeah, I got you.
I have a Java update on my computer. So the way the Supertones tour was, we got 25 minutes to play because we were opening, and it was shows every single day, sometimes 2 shows a day.
Wow.
And so to maximize our stage time, we played as fast as we could to get as many songs as we could within a 25-minute chunk, which physically, if you ask any of the guys from like Stavesacre or the Supertones or Ghoti Hook, ask them about Adam having blood infection, having sepsis on tour. We were playing so fast and so hard, I kept catching my knuckles on my cymbals. And so the back of my hands just looked like raw meat. They were all cut open. I had scabs. They were super infected. So I would keep bandages on my hands during the day. And then before the show, I would go and break the scabs open so I could grab my drumsticks. And then that turned into a blood infection. And so if I got a cut, I got a cut on my nose, I still have a scar there. It instantly was infected.
My gosh.
So I remember it was like Pensacola. I went to a free clinic and the doctor's like, "You've got sepsis. You're lucky you're not in the hospital right now."
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I didn't know what that was. So I was like, okay, can we do something so I don't have it anymore? He's like, yeah. So he gave me a bunch of medicine. And so it was so bad nobody would eat with me.
Wow.
I remember Jeff Ballou just being like, I can't look at you. And I'd have to go to some other part of the room so I could have
quarantined. That's hysterical. I'm not laughing at your injury. I can't imagine.
It was pretty brutal. It was pretty gross.
I bet. Other than that Stavesacre Supertones tour, who else were you touring with at that time?
Oof. And we toured with the Dingies. We toured with the Blamed. It's hard to remember because it was just constant.
I bet it was.
I don't remember when it was, but there was a two-year period where it was I was doing Ghoti Hook tours, and then I did a tour. I played drums on a Dingies tour, and I remember driving home from New York with the Dingies, and I was going through my timeline, and I hadn't been home in almost 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
So it was constant. Because we would do long tours. We toured with Stavesacre a lot. Calibretto 13. I know there has to be more. We did a lot of repeat tours. Mm-hmm. We toured with the Blamed a lot. We toured, like I said, with Stavesacre a lot. I'm sure we toured with the Dingies at least 3 times.
A lot of touring.
Yeah. Going to South Africa was really cool. We didn't tour with anybody over there. It was just us. It was super bizarre.
How did that come about?
It's bananas how it came out. A guy was going to put on a festival in East London, which is on the east coast of South Africa. It's a beautiful area. It's like a surf town. And he wanted to put on a music festival, and he said to his son, he's like, all right, we have the money to bring one band from America over to play at this festival. Who do you want it to be? And he picked us.
That's insane.
I was just like, he told us that, and I was just like, that doesn't make sense. There's so many other cool bands your kid could have picked, but he picked us. And so what we did was we had, there was another festival happening in Cape Town. There was a 2-week chunk in between these festivals. So we booked a tour from northern South Africa down to the festival in East London, and then down to Cape Town to that other festival. So we just told people, I was like, hey, if you pay for our travel expenses and make sure we can eat, we'll do this. And so we just toured our way down the coast of South Africa.
How was that? Was it cool?
It was awesome. It was so weird. It's like,
were people showing up or?
Not really. I mean, at that point, the shows didn't even really matter.
Yeah, you're just getting a free vacay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were playing clubs in South Africa, and nobody had the slightest clue who we were. We did get booked in the middle of the desert at this place called Oudtshoorn, I think is how they pronounce it, but it's like a 2-week walk. If you left from that town in any direction, the desert was so big, it would take you a 2-week walk.
Wow.
To get to civilization. And it was like, I don't know, like 110 degrees. And the concept was apartheid was just ending. So they wanted an American band to come and like bridge the gap between the Afrikaans and the white people in South Africa. They didn't tell us this. We just thought it was a show, but we get there and the guy's like explaining all of these expectations. And we're just like, oh, we're not the band. You need like U2 or some band like that. So we show up to the show, and it's this huge warehouse. And there's like hundreds of people in the parking lot, all with their car doors open, playing the same radio station. And it's like Afrikaans hip hop. And they're all like dancing and having a good time. And he's like, yeah, these are the people that are here for the show. And I was like, oh, no. So he takes us up around the side of the warehouse to the balcony area. It's where a bomb had gone off and blown off half of the building.
Whoa.
So that was their balcony. It was their outdoor balcony because a bomb blew up part of the building and it just didn't have a roof. So we walk into the venue and it's this huge discotheque. And it's like people dancing and there's a DJ. It's like he's got a DJ table set up and a keyboard so he can do his own. Do you remember in disco there's that pew sound? Like he had a keyboard set up so he could be playing the disco and then go pew every once in a while. The drum set was a kick drum and a snare drum. That was it.
Wow.
No amps, no microphones, no nothing. And so we were just like, this isn't going to happen. And it was like, it took like about an hour for them to realize like they didn't have anything we needed to be able to, because they didn't know what we were.
Yeah.
So that was one of the few shows where we're just like, this, we can't make this happen. And I think in hindsight, it was a really, really good thing that it didn't happen. But it was an awesome day. Like they booked us these villas out in the desert, and it was like a 2-mile walk into town. So like we canceled the show. We go back to these like teeny tiny villas, and we're just sitting there. We didn't know anybody. We're in the middle of the absolute desert. And so I was like, well, we got to do something. And so Christian and I walked into town. Jamie and Joel didn't want to do anything. So we go to this bar, and it was amazing. It was the coolest bar. It was like something out of a movie. It's like we walked in, and it was all Afrikaans people.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of how to say it with Christian, our bass player, is Hispanic, but fairly Caucasian looking. I'm very Caucasian looking. And so we walk in, and literally everything stops, and everybody turns and looks at us because we're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, we're either going to go in or we're going to leave. And we walked like 2 miles to get here. So we go in, we get like a couple ciders and sit down, and it was their karaoke night. So it was like 60 and 70-year-old dudes singing like Madonna songs from the 80s and Elton John songs. And it was just, we sat there for hours just drinking cider, watching these really old dudes sing like
That's
a virgin.
awesome.
It was amazing. Joel and Jamie are still pissed that they didn't go with us.
What an awesome story. That's amazing. So obviously incredible opportunity for you guys to, obviously see another country you might not have been able to do. So that's cool that obviously you couldn't play for people, obviously, but it still was, a cool opportunity.
Yeah. We set up distribution for Tooth and Nail so that they could distribute CDs and stuff.
Okay, I was going to ask, was there a way for people to have heard your stuff out there? That's cool that maybe that came from that.
Yeah, because before, like, they would randomly get a cat. This kid got, I think, a Tooth and Nail catalog from a cousin or something. And so that's the only way.
That's so cool.
And so we did an interview at a radio station, and they had connections to a distribution company. And so we put Tooth and Nail in contact with this distribution company so that they could get music over there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a really positive thing.
That is awesome. Very cool. Okay, so touring's going well. Or do you feel like you're in the same boat you were with Banana Man when it was time to do a new record? Is that why you decided a cover record, or is that kind of?
Oh, yeah. Part of what got us some notoriety was our really weird cover song selection. Mm-hmm. Like we did the Big Red commercial, Big Red Gum commercial, Fraggle Rock, Banana Splits, just random stuff that we grew up with that we thought was funny. Like the Tom's Diner song was really popular. And so Tooth and Nail wanted to capitalize off of this thing we were doing.
So that was our idea.
Yeah. So, I think I remember at this point in touring, like we weren't having to tour all the time. We would have like 2-week chunks where we could be at home. And then we were doing well enough that all we had to do when we were home was rehearse. And so I remember us coming up with a list of like what cover songs we wanted to do. And we learned them and then went and Kevin Gutierrez, our producer, he had a home studio, so we just went, recorded them real quick. We already had the X cover, the I See Red song from an X tribute album that we were on. So we just threw that on there.
Nice.
And we were still young enough that we didn't process all the information. We didn't think about the fact that the songs that we picked would have to be cleared legally.
Oh, yeah.
Which meant ultimately that the artists had to give their okay for us to do these songs. So we have the Pixies, Willie Nelson, a lot of like bands that we grew up listening to. It clicked in our heads that like these people had to be asked if it was okay. So there is a part of their brain that is aware of us. It was just like this moment of like, oh, Frank Black had to be aware of us for like 5 seconds.
That's hilarious. That's amazing. That's amazing. So when you recorded that, was that a pretty quick time frame as well? And then, you know, looking back on that, how do you feel about that cover record, Songs We Didn't Write?
Songs We Didn't Write was kind of a catalyst for a lot of change because it was done really quickly, really concisely, and kind of sterile. Just there's not a lot of life to it. It was just, here's a song without a lot of texture. So there's two things that came into play. That record was pretty just very vanilla for me. And from that Stavesacre Supertones tour, we started playing really fast. Like I've gone back and listened to some of our live shows from that era, and it's too fast. It's like,
I get it.
And I remember being the drummer, I can just sit there and stare at the audience. And I remember playing shows where it's like, it's so fast, the audience doesn't even know what to do. They can't dance to it. They can't, they can run around and like hit each other, but that's like a very small percentage of the crowd. And I remember it was like, people can't latch on to this. There's nothing, because I love going to shows where the band plays something where you're just like, your body has to move. You can't help but not get into it.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down with the guys and being like, I want to write music where people just want to shake their butts and get into it. And it's like there's something they can latch onto, not just hammering these super fast songs into the audience where people are just staring at us. And so that's what brought about the major shift from Banana Man, Songs We Didn't Write, punk era Ghoti Hook, to us trying to provide something for the audience that they can kind of sink their teeth in, which was ironic because a lot of people were like, this isn't Ghoti Hook. And so they kind of backed away. So in an attempt to draw the audience closer to us, we ended up pushing them away by putting out something that they weren't ready or they weren't expecting. So that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I bet it was. So after Songs We Didn't Write, is that kind of when you're talking about writing these songs? Was that for 2 years to never? Is that kind of what you're hinting at?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that record then. Maybe, obviously it's a more mature record is what it sounds like. You guys have kind of grown up in a weird way. And so kind of let's talk about that record and looking back on it, how you feel about it, and maybe some thoughts from that record as well.
I don't really remember the writing process for 2 years to never. I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember struggling because when you write records based off of 3 chords, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
You just come up with a chord progression and put a fast drum beat behind it, and you got a song. And for the bridge, you do the hardcore breakdown, and then you go back into the fast part, and you're done. with 2 Years to Never, we really wanted to think, one, what would be a song that people could get into? How do we want to create that? And then how do we show some more musical intelligence?
Oh, gotcha.
So I remember a lot of the thought process that went into writing 2 Years to Never, but I don't remember a lot of the actual rehearsals.
Okay.
But we got Tooth and Nail booked us a month down at Ardent Studios in Memphis, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Because we were used to just go in, record as fast as possible, get it done. And, so I think Tooth and Nail kind of felt like, because we had been touring, part of our deal was, we're going to tour constantly. We'll take out any band that you just signed so they can get out there and they can sell some records. So it was kind of like, we scratch your back, you scratch our back type situation. So they bought us, Tooth and Nail got us a bunch of really nice gear and then booked us a month down at Ardent Studios. And Ardent Studios is like, everybody's recorded there. Led Zeppelin recorded there.
It's crazy.
The guy that did the song Life is a Highway.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray Vaughan. Gin Blossoms. Like, it was crazy.
That's amazing.
Like, I hung out with the lead singer from the Gin Blossoms, for a while because he just showed up. And
it's amazing.
And we had our producer was Sean O'Dwyer. He worked with I'm blanking on his name. Steve Kravac. He did a lot of the MXPX and a lot of Southern punk stuff. And it was amazing. I had a drum tech to work with. To keep my drums sounding good. And we figured out that there was a room in the studio that had like all of these musicians' amps stored. Wow. So we would record late at night after everybody had left. So we would pull these amps out. It was I think like amps that Led Zeppelin had used and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and like all of their settings were still marked. So we got to record guitar tracks with like all this awesome gear.
So cool.
So that was it was a really cool experience to be able to have a month to live in Memphis and really just work on these songs. And so a lot of work and effort went into that record. And we were broken up before that record actually kind of caught on and people were like, oh, there's actually some cool stuff in here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I remember I was on tour with the Party People and we were at a festival and like every kid I saw walk by with a plastic bag, little, swag bag, had 2 Years to Never in it. And I was like, come on.
Jeez Louise.
But, it's life.
More like 2 years too late. Like,
yeah.
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate because it's like you put all that time and that effort into that and, and look, people just didn't either get it or want to get it or understand it. And that's unfortunate. I like the record. I think it sounds great overall. I think it's, and it is a departure for sure, like comparatively to the other records. But how do you feel about it? Look, you obviously sound proud of it. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the record. Conrad wasn't in the band anymore. He wrote a lot. He was very bipolar in his writing. He wrote Never and Scared Am I, which are really, like I said, really dark songs. But then he also wrote like Ookla the Punk.
Yeah.
So he seemed to have either really goofy or really dark. But with him not in the band anymore, Joel was writing a lot of the guitar parts and coming up with a lot of basically the way the writing process works for Ghoti Hook post Conrad is Joel and I worked on songs. He would come up with a riff and I'd put some drums to it, or I would come up with a riff and then he would expand on that. And these songs would get created fairly organically. Jamie, when he wrote a song, he wanted to write the entire song, and then that's what we played. So his songs, he would just bring them, and it would be like, here's the song, we learned it, and that's how it went. With Joel and I, it was just like, what do we feel like happens next? So Jamie wrote Lullaby and Chevy Nova. And then I'm not sure if he wrote any of the other songs on that record. I'm gonna look it up again. And then the rest of it, a lot of it was just Joel and I. Yeah, Joel and I coming up with stuff and making them grow. So we would have rehearsals and we'd have a riff, and then we'd just play it, make it grow. What happens? What do we feel like happens next? It was a very organic process. It was a time when we could say, what do we want to hear happen next? Instead of like, Face to Face did this with this song, so let's try that. Or No Effects did this, and that sounds really cool, so let's do that.
Yeah.
We kind of left all of that behind and just went with what we felt. So I feel very connected to 2 Years to Never and the 6-song EP, because those songs were all based off of like, what do we hear as a band?
Mm-hmm.
And we just went with it. We were like, we're not going to worry about if it's the SoCal punk beat. We're not going to worry about if it sounds cool. We're just going to put out what is in us to put out. And if it's cool, great. If not, we tried.
Yeah.
So I'm still really proud of those records.
I bet. And so the 6 songs, were they just extra songs you had written at that time, or were they after you had written?
They were after.
Okay. And how did Velvet Blue come in the picture? Was your contract with Tooth and Nail up after, obviously, 2 Years to Never? And okay, kind of maybe talk about how Velvet Blue came in and how you got to do the 6-song EP.
So our contract with Tooth and Nail was, we signed for a record, which was Sumo Surprise, and then it was +1+1, which is just a bunch of legal jargon for, we signed for a record where we have no options. We just put that out. Then +1 means we can renegotiate, and then +1. So with each record, we could renegotiate what we got as a band. And then we did the cover record as a favor for Tooth and Nail. So that was a boon for us.
Yeah.
And so when we got to 2 Years to Never, our contract was up, and we had already decided that we were going to break up. So we figured there's no reason to re-sign with Tooth and Nail because we don't have anything to put out. But we were still touring. That's where I don't know if I already said this, but the title for 2 Years to Never came from us having a conversation where it was like, if we don't do something major within the next 2 years, like get on Warped Tour or get on a tour that really pushes us to the next level or something to that effect, we'll just break up. So it was 2 Years to Never. It's kind of convoluted, but it made sense in our brains. So we didn't re-up with Tooth and Nail, but like I said, we were still touring. And I met Jeff way back, Jeff Cloud, way back at one of our early Cornerstones. It's a very vivid memory because it was like 90 degrees outside at Cornerstone. I think all I had on were a pair of shorts because I was just like, it was brutal.
Yeah, I bet.
And this guy comes walking up in jeans, a pompadour haircut, a button-up shirt with a t-shirt under it, and a corduroy jacket. I was like, this guy has to be on drugs. I was like, his body temperature is so out of whack. I just remember staring at him and thinking, what's wrong with you? But then he like reached into his bag and pulled out a cassette tape, and he's like, this is my band, Pony Express. You should check them out. I was like, okay, cool. And so that's how I met Jeff.
That's so cool.
And I don't remember when Jeff started talking to us about putting out an EP. It had to have been at a festival, you know, because at festivals, the bands are at the festival all day, and then they go back to the band hotel at night. And so all the bands hang out, like in at Cornerstone. What was it? The Macomb. Like all the bands are. Yeah, all the bands are in one hotel, so we're all just, you know, hanging out, talking. So it had to have come from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we agreed to do an EP with Velvet Blue, and then I very much remember the writing process for that because it was Jamie. I think Jamie was engaged to a girl down in Florida, maybe Cocoa Beach. Doesn't matter. I think he was working a lot. He was traveling a lot. And I don't think he was super into the writing process at that point. So Joel and I wrote the last 6-song EP, which, I mean, is pretty poignant because he and I essentially started it way back when I was 12. And so all these years later, he and I are wrapping it up.
Yeah.
And really, you know, I remember he and I talking about it and being like, it doesn't matter. This is the last thing. We don't have to worry about touring off this record. We don't have to worry about album sales. We don't have to worry about anything. We can just write whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So, and we're really, for the most part, all of those songs are still, you know, really important to us. And we feel really proud of that record because we worked hard on it. And it's still, you know, with Ghoti Hook getting back together for these shows this year, a lot of people have posted on social media how much they like the last 2 records. So like you were saying, 2 years too late. It's like, it's still cool. One, it blows my mind that anybody cares about anything that we did. Like the fact that I'm 46 years old, sitting in my house looking at either my phone or my laptop, and somebody from Tacoma, Washington, or, you know, BF, Ohio is like, man, you guys you guys were the soundtrack of my teenage years, and I still put your record on. Is just, that's crazy. That
so cool.
You could never have told me as a teenager that I would be a part of something that impacted anybody's life. I mean, if 5 dudes out there, or ladies, you know, were like, I still listen to your record, it would still blow my mind.
Yeah.
But the fact that like hundreds of people on social media can be like, you know, I was listening to your record the other day. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and I am still awestruck at the fact that I got to be a part of any of it, you know? So the good, the bad, the ugly of all of it, I am extremely proud and awestruck to be a part of that.
That's so cool.
And to get to meet all of the amazing people I've met.
Yeah.
You know, which brings us, you know, like after Ghoti Hook stopped touring, I still tried to keep touring with other bands, and that's how the Party People came about.
Oh, yeah.
So
Eric. I think I knew that, and I had a brain fart that you played in that. I remember Eric telling me that.
It was a pretty rough period in my life. It's actually, I've talked to Eric a couple times about regrets. Ghoti Hook breaking up really threw me for a loop. I thought Ghoti Hook was going to be, I just thought it was always going to be there. You know, in all honesty, I was the last person to agree for the band to break up. I didn't want the band to end. And I took it really hard emotionally. I was also going through a divorce. Because my life, it's like Ghoti Hook broke up and then my life just tanked hard. And I made a lot of poor decisions. I was doing a lot of stupid stuff. I was drinking really hard. I was taking pills. But I still wanted to play music. I still wanted to do stuff. And so Cloud called me up and he's like, hey, Eric from Dennis and Mars has this band. And it's real down and dirty. And he's like, I think you should play. And I was like, you know, I thought this will be something to help me to elevate myself above a lot of the negativity I was embroiled in. And it was great. I love, you know, touring with the Party People, but I blew it. I came home from tour and everything just went to shit in my life. And I was in a bunch of different bands. I was in a bunch of different local bands. And so I think, I don't remember who all it was, but I was like in 6 different projects.
Wow. And
I wasn't doing well physically and emotionally. And so I told Eric, I was just like, I can't do it anymore. It's, you know, he's down in Florida, Cloud's on the West Coast. And it was too much. And I look back on that and I was like, if I had gotten my life together and made some positive choices, that would have been an awesome project to be in.
Totally.
It was great. I mean, the tour was great. It was awesome hanging out with Eric. Cloud is always a ball to hang out with. And Dean's
awesome.
You know, it was such a fun group of people to play music with. But yeah, I wish I'd done better. Eric deserved for me to do better for that project, but it was just a real crap period.
No, I get it. So I know you kind of touched on Ghoti Hook ending and how you took it hard. You know, was it when you guys split, if you don't mind me asking, was it amicable or was it a situation where you didn't talk for a while, or were you just like, let's, you know, let bygones be bygones? Like how did that kind of happen?
It was very much we toured. We were one of the rare bands that financially we ended in the black. We didn't owe anybody any money, which unfortunately a lot of bands keep touring after they break up just because they're in debt. Yep. And that sucks. There's a lot of bitter dudes on the road right now.
I bet.
That's such a bummer. We didn't want to end that way. I took it really hard, and I didn't want the guys to know how hard I took it. I wanted to be, like Joel and Jamie were fine with the band breaking up, so I wanted to be like, yeah, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. But socially, we were all still friends. Everything was fine. Joel moved to New York. Jamie moved to Florida. I stayed in Virginia for the most part. I moved to Pennsylvania for a little while. But, you know, it was difficult. Everybody started a life. You know, Joel started his life in New York. Jamie started his in Florida. Jamie eventually moved back to Virginia. But like I said, it was a really dark time period, and I still wanted to play music. So I was just, you know, kind of whoring myself out to whoever would have me. And I picked up a job doing sound installation and like front of house sound work at mega church in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And just because the pay was really good and they didn't care, yeah. I worked like 80 hours a week. But one of the guys that played there for one of the services was a guy called Andy Zipf.
Oh yeah, Andy.
And he played in a band, and I never really noticed him, but one of the nights they had him play a song where he sang, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Like, this guy needs to be anywhere but right here. He needs to be doing something. So I went and I talked to him. I was like, man, I don't want to dog your band, but like, you need to be doing something else. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, you know, what you're doing is great, but I was like, you could go out and play anywhere by yourself and people are just going to be floored. And he's like, oh, thanks, man. You know, and he's in Andy's style.
Yeah.
That's really nice of you to say.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So he and I kept talking, and I think he knew who I was from Ghoti Hook. I'm not totally sure. But I started playing drums with him. You know, he and I started rehearsing together. And I ended up playing with him for about 12 years through a lot of different incarnations of, you know, what he had going on. And playing with Andy connected me to the DC, Northern Virginia music scene and got me into more bands. So, you know, essentially from the darkest days post Ghoti Hook, you know, I played with Andy all the way up through me getting back into a really good place in my life.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm really thankful for getting to be with him and having a friendship with him.
Yeah.
And then, so I met you at a Sun Bear show.
Yeah, with Andy. At Black Cat.
Yeah, but it's like I feel like I have known you for a really long time period, like way longer than that. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm connecting you back to like shows. You lived in Florida, right?
Yeah, I was in Lakeland area. Well, I was in Jacksonville, but when I saw you guys, I was in Lakeland area. But I went to St. Pete, I believe.
Okay.
But we probably just knew a lot of the same people, and obviously, but yeah, man, small world, dude. It's just, when you mentioned Andy, he's such a sweetie, and
yeah,
I just, you know, that's so cool that to have a friend like that in your life, like that, like you said, was there with you through that time. I'm gonna hopefully have him on the podcast sometime. He's such an amazing guy, and he lives down here now near me, so I get to see him, you know, from time to time, which is nice.
Oh, you guys get to hang out?
Yeah, sometimes we'll get together and get a beer, and we'll go to, sometimes when he plays shows, I'll make it out, and he hosts a songwriter night on every third Thursday in Jack's Beach, and sometimes I'll go out there, and it's cool to see him, hang out. He lives not far, but far from me, but you know, we get to here and there, so it's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. You should come down sometime and visit, man. It's really cool down here.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, once we get our daughter past 3, I mean, we've done some long travels already. But those are usually like family oriented.
Oh, dude, I totally get it, man. I get it.
I love driving down to Florida.
Yeah, well, let me know if you ever do. That would be really cool to get together and hang out. When you have an opportunity. So
okay.
Let's talk about Furnace Fest 2023. Kind of how this kind of came up, and maybe what we can look forward to, and how you're feeling about it.
I'm feeling pretty good at this point. It honestly was completely out of the blue. Chad Pearson, do you know Chad?
Yeah, I know Chad.
Randomly sent Joel and I a group text saying, so we played Furnace Fest back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't remember when exactly. I just remember thinking we don't belong here. And everyone was real angry. So Chad sent us a text and he's like, hey, I'm working with Chad. I'm blanking on his last name. Furnace Fest Chad.
Oh, yeah, I'm blanking now too. Johnson.
Yeah. He's like, I work with him, and in Chad Pearson style, he's like, you guys should play Furnace Fest. And so we were like, well, I didn't even know Furnace Fest was still happening. So I was like, yeah, we'll talk about it. And so Chad sends us another text, a group text with Chad Johnson in the mix. He's like, hey, this is Chad Johnson. He's with Furnace Fest. These guys are in Ghoti Hook. You guys should get together and make them doing a reunion show happen at this year's Furnace Fest. So Chad was just like, here you go. And so Joel and I talked about it, and we knew Jamie has been hesitant about doing Ghoti Hook stuff. I think he thinks, you know how sometimes you go to a bar or you go to a show and there's dudes that are like in their 50s or 60s, and they're doing what they think is really cool from back when they used to be cool. Mm-hmm. But it's just not really working out. You're just like, good for you guys that you're not sitting watching TV. I think Jamie's afraid of us looking like that. Like a guitarist, like the guy who's got a button-up shirt that he obviously bought at an outlet mall with like a leather vest and the bandana with skulls on it. And he's like, I look really cool. And you're like, you look made for TV cool.
Yeah.
I think Jamie's afraid of us looking like that. So we knew it was going to be kind of difficult to get him on board. But he was actually really amicable about it. Just like, he was a little hesitant at first. He's like, nah, we should just let sleeping dogs lie. And we had a Zoom meeting, and I was like, look, there's guys our age who are sitting in their house, either washing dishes, mowing their lawn, doing some, project, wishing, one, they could have ever been in a band.
Oh, yeah.
2, wishing they could do anything right now that was even close to the opportunity that has just been put in.
You're so right. You're so right.
And I was like, for those guys who would give anything to have the opportunity that has just been handed to us, we kind of owe it to them to do something.
Let's do it for the boys.
Yeah. If not just ourselves.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many times I've stood and washed the dishes, staring out my back window, thinking about being on tour,
Absolutely.
And I was like, if I was one of those dudes who had never been in a band, but it was always my dream to be in a band, found out that 3 dudes got the opportunity to play some huge festival, even though they haven't played a show in like 20 years, I'd be super pissed.
Yep.
And like, if those guys were just like, nah, I don't really want to. I'd be like,
yeah,
get your head out of your ass, get back to your instruments, and go play a show.
absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I think that helped Jamie be like, okay, you know. So yeah, we started rehearsing for Furnace Fest, and we only get like 30 minutes to play. So we came up with a short set list that had like something from every record.
That's great.
And the more we talked about it and the more we thought about it, it was like a lot of our friends and family won't be able to be there. You know, it's like, if we're going to do this, we would like a lot of, you know, our loved ones and friends and people to be able to be a part of this. So I called up a local venue and we booked another show. It's a place called Jam and Java. It used to be a franchise.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah.
But the 2 brothers purchased it and turned it into a really nice club. So we have a show September 9th with a band called The Throws.
Oh, I love the Throws. Bill Campbell. Yeah,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
I loved them back in the day.
Oh, nice. Okay, so Harry, their drummer, Harry Evans or Bear, I don't know how you would know, which name you would know him by. He was our producer for the 6-song EP.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
He's awesome. I love Harry. He's such a good guy. Yeah, so they're going to be opening for us September 9th. And we're playing the set's going to be like an hour and a half long.
Wow.
Going to be a ton of stuff, which has been good because it raised the bar for us to learn stuff. So I think like the Jam and Java show is going to be the main course, and Furnace Fest is just going to be dessert. You know, we get up on stage, play a 30-minute just kick-ass set.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about it.
That's so cool. I'm gonna be there. I'm stoked to hang, and
Oh, good.
it should be special. I feel like there's something just magical about being at it. So I think for you guys, it's definitely gonna be an incredible moment for you guys, you know, to not only get to play, but just feel good about what you know, the mark that you guys put on this music scene. So I think it's really cool and an incredible opportunity for you guys to just go out and do your thing, you know. And I think I'm really stoked for you guys.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's something I didn't think was going to happen. It's honestly taken me, Ghoti Hook ended like in the middle of my 20s, and it was just like a couple years ago. I was really trying to absorb the concept that it was never coming back. It's taken me that long to emotionally process losing Ghoti Hook. And like anything out of a story, as soon as I start processing the grieving process to come to its finality is when it comes back.
Yeah.
And another connective thread in my life, I live in a cul-de-sac. The guy that lives on the other side of my cul-de-sac was best friends with Chad Johnson growing up.
That's bizarre.
He was out walking his dog and he had a Furnace Fest t-shirt on. And I was like, oh, I played there a long time ago. And he's like, oh yeah. And this is before Chad Pearson had contacted us about Furnace Fest. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. I was like, and so when texting with Chad Johnson from Furnace Fest, I was like, one of your friends lives across the street from me. He's like, that's crazy. So
that is bizarre.
Still keeping the connection going in my life.
That's amazing. What an awesome story, man. That's cool. Dude, what's I know Furnace Fest seems like obviously and the show that you've got with the Throws coming up. What's the future look like for you, man? What else can you look forward to?
I'm in the process of booking a show in Central PA. There used to be a club called the Chameleon Club. It was
I remember
really,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool club. I've always enjoyed playing there, but they've since gone out of business. But the general manager of the Chameleon Club has opened up a new venue called Phantom Power, like 5 minutes from the Chameleon Club. So I'm in the process of booking with him for either late October, early November. And I've got the Huntingtons on board. So it'll be the Huntingtons and Ghoti Hook. And there's a third band from that area that I haven't contacted yet, but I'd like for them to open for us.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that.
That's rad, dude. Very cool, man.
I think for Jamie, Joel, and I, what we've discussed is like just if somebody contacts us about booking a show and we're into it, to just be ready to play.
That's awesome.
And I'm actually going to call Joel after this. I want to talk to him about putting out some new music.
I was going to ask you, what does that look like?
We've chatted about it, and it's always kind of been like, but I've been writing music. This is probably like in like TV shows and movies when the drummer's like, I've been writing some music, and everyone like, oh, okay. So I fully recognize this scenario. But I have at least 3 songs. Two of them are up on my SoundCloud right now. But I sent one of them to Jeff Cloud, and he's like, "This has to be a Ghoti Hook song."
Dude, that's cool.
So it'll be probably more connected to 2 Years to Never and the 6-song EP than it would be the early stuff.
Sure.
Which I fully recognize, like guys who are in their mid 40s who grew up listening to Ghoti Hook, they want that thing to connect to their youth, to their nostalgia. I fully get that. And I would love, I think my concept right now would be to do both. So I have these 3 songs that would be more relative to the later stuff, but I'm also totally down to just have rehearsals where we just play fast punk stuff, just easy, 3-chord punk songs, and just crank them out. Because I've talked to Cloud about Velvet Blue putting some new Ghoti Hook stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll just pick up where we left off."
It's great.
So
what a good spot to be in, man.
Yeah, it's like I was saying a few minutes ago, it's just like I've always felt a sense of onus because I know there are guys who sit in their basement and play their guitar, and they're awesome. And no one's going to hear them. They'll never play a live show, or they don't play live anymore. My mailman is like all tatted up. His leg from like his neck to his ankles, he's covered in tattoos. And I was like, "Did you used to play music?" And he's like, "Yeah, but life, just didn't go that way." So I think about that guy, and I think about all the guys that are out that would just kill to be able to send an email to some guy on the West Coast and be like, "Hey, if we put some songs together, you put it out?" Sure.
Yeah.
That is a blessing far beyond what I ever deserve.
Yeah.
So I want to respect that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully when I call Joel, he's receptive. Because if I can get Joel on board, Jamie's going to be like, "I don't want to miss out." So we can get him on board.
Awesome. That's exciting, man. That's really good to hear. That's been an awesome conversation, man. I'm really grateful for your time, man. Yeah.
I listened to.
What were you saying?
I listened to Eric's podcast with you.
Oh, yes.
Like, oh man, he's so cool, and he has so many good stories, and like, I'm gonna suck. It's gonna be such a
No
bummer.
way, dude. This has been amazing. This has been so cool. And
God.
Eric does have great stories. He's amazing. So, Adam, thanks so much for being on the podcast, and I really can't wait to hang out at Furnace Fest, man. We'll bro down.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Hey, thank you to the listener for tuning in to this latest episode. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Awesome conversation. Thank you, Adam Neubauer. What a cool convo. I've always loved Ghoti Hook, and getting to know him over the years has been cool. So it's just an awesome opportunity to hear some stories from that time and kind of how he feels about things now, and the upcoming show. It's just an awesome overall conversation. So I'm really stoked on it. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Add me on Instagram and Facebook if you'd like, at the Rumors Are True Cast. Like and subscribe if you like. Not a big deal if you don't. I just really appreciate all the support, guys. So got some great stuff coming up, and man, nostalgia, man, it's still a hell of a drug.